Hello and welcome to the Tartan Touchline, the podcast where we talk all things football with a Scottish twist. From the top tier to the grassroots, we cover the game like no one else. Fetch a scarf, grab a cuppa or a tinny and join us for a right good gab. My name is Aidan and joining me as ever is my co-host Lauren McCulloch. So, Lauren, how's your last 2 weeks been?
Eventful to say the least. Football's just been a bit of a roller coaster of emotions, but yeah, not too bad. I was at my cousin's game again at the weekend there. Obviously the last time we spoke, it was quite an eventful game, but this time it was more. I think we've uncovered the jinx, shall we say. So I arrived at my cousin's game and his team went 2-0 up pretty quickly. My uncle and my little cousin showed up and quite quickly it was 2 each. Then my uncle had to leave for work about 20 minutes before the end of the game. It was still 2 each. He leaves 3-2, 4-2, 5-2. And his team ended up winning 6-2. So, yeah, I think we kind of uncovered a little jinx.
Don't come back.
It's not for me to say that one.
It's funny that you say that. So we've said a couple of times we work for SPFL News now, and I've covered a couple of away games where Celtic have played away from home. So I've done Dundee at the start of the year, which was the fantastic 3-3 game. And then the Hibs one where we'll talk about it later. Hibs winning at Easter Road against Celtic, my friends immediately messaged upon full-time whistle at Easter Road saying, don't go and watch Celtic away from home. We drop points every single time you go to cover the game. So maybe I'm the jinx for Celtic.
There's another one. There's a guy who sits in front of us at the home games at St Mirren, and every time he seems to go to the toilet, we seem to score. So I think we just need to keep sending him to the toilet every 5 minutes.
Just tell him to go and sit in there. Just sit in the bog.
Sit in there, and we might score a good few. But yeah. So how's your last couple of weeks been?
I had a bone scan last Thursday. It's a hip problem I've had. I've had it in my left hip. I've now got it in my right hip. It's FAI hip impingement to anybody out there that's got some sort of medical degree. But it kind of semi-ended my running career, really. But I had to get a bone scan on it, and I had to go into Glasgow for it. And right now, East Kilbride is just roadworks, traffic, roads closed. Train lines are off. It's an absolute nightmare trying to get into Glasgow from East Kilbride, and I'm only about 8 miles away from the city centre, so it's a nightmare. But the bone scan, when I arrived, I didn't know that they were putting me on local anaesthetic. I'm not a huge fan of needles, and
close your eyes and hope for the best.
The doctor said, right, that's you. And I thought, that was it done. No, that was just the anaesthetic injection. And I turned around and saw this needle that was about 4 inches in length, and also the area where they have to put it is quite a sensitive area. It doesn't leave anything to the imagination. Everyone can see everything that's going on down there, right into my groin. And both the anaesthetic and the bone scan, basically it's like a dye. They put a dye in there and then put you through an MRI so they can see clearer what's going on around the joints. They're basically just trying to establish how bad the impingement is to see if it requires surgery or not. But yeah, no, they had to put both injections in the same hole. So I'm a wee bit bruised down there. And that day that I got it, once the anaesthetic wore off, and I had no dead leg. I was just limping about. But do you know what? It could have been worse.
It can always be worse. It can always be worse.
Okay, so Lauren, since we last recorded, Rangers have only picked up 3 points from a possible 9. They've lost 3 home games in a row for the first time in 12 years. There's rumours of a buyout from the San Francisco 49ers investment firm, the chairman of Leeds. They've sacked Philippe Clement. They've brought in Barry Ferguson, Neil McCann, Billy Dodds and Alan McGregor as the coaching staff.
Team of dreams.
I mean, it's the Avengers. They've really assembled the Avengers there, haven't they? What's your thoughts in the last 2 weeks with regards to, I guess, Rangers Football Club?
I don't think any more could have happened if we tried, to be honest. I think, obviously, first of all, the whole story broke about the San Francisco 49ers, which really, I think, brought around an air of positivity to Rangers, and people were like, right, okay, maybe this is a turning point. We'll hold on to Clement. We'll get this investment, and then we can really kick on come the summer. Then St Mirren came to town.
Sorry, can I just step in for a second? We came into class here at Edinburgh Napier, and I just looked at you and I just went, "You are the Grim Reaper." It's like, the meme with the Grim Reaper going into the rooms and it's got the X's over the faces. You've sacked how many Hearts managers? You've got a stat about this? How many managers have you had sacked as a club?
Well, as a club, I'm not sure. It's probably a lot more. But Stephen Robinson himself has he's sacked nine managers. So I mean, if you want your manager sacked, just play St Mirren.
Play St Mirren, yeah.
Because I was speaking to a couple of my friends who are Rangers fans, and they were like, "Lauren, see, as much as we're really annoyed that you beat us, we're also really happy. So thank you, because you got rid of Clement." But yeah, so just he's seen off Robbie Nielsen, Stephen Naismith, Stephen McLean, and Van Bronckhorst as well. So yeah, he does have a bit of the Grim Reaper about him, Stephen Robinson. But the game itself, I thought, as much as Rangers were poor, St Mirren were excellent.
Absolutely excellent. We spoke about going into the game. You weren't as optimistic as it was at Ibrox, but your forward line, because they're really big, strong, and kind of can bully defenders, Rangers didn't know what to do. Rangers did not know how to handle even the fact that Olasanya didn't start. He came on, and the impact he had too. You can talk all you like about Rangers being poor. St Mirren thoroughly deserved the win.
Yeah, I think everyone was shocked to see Olasanya was on the bench just with his sheer pace. He caused them problems when we were at Ibrox at the start of the season, as much as we got beat 2-1. But to see a younger start his first game since January, he had a massive layoff last year. He'd done his ACL, but to see him back to his best was brilliant. Mika Mandron, I don't know what he's having for breakfast now, but he's just completely turned a corner. There was a point he was going to Rotherham in January, and people were glad to see the back of him, because we just thought he just offered us nothing. But he's scored 5 goals in his last 6 games, and he's really turned a corner. But both of them absolutely bullied Enciala.
It's been a long couple of weeks for Enciala.
Yeah, he's had a tough time. I feel for him. He is a young boy, but I think being hooked after half an hour at Kilmarnock, as much as it paid off for Barry Ferguson, I think it'll take a little bit of time for him to kind of recover from that one, just with the tough couple of weeks he has had, because then Olasanya entered the fray, bullied him again for our second, and just left him for dead. So
on to the Avengers, the coaching staff. For me, as an outside point of view, you get the sense that the assembly of the coaching staff is almost to placate the fans in a way, to distract them from the real problems that are going on at the club. For me, at this point, the only thing that can actually save Rangers as investment is somebody buying out the club, because decisions from top to bottom have just been, well, frankly, shocking for years. You look at Barry Ferguson, he is a club legend. He was a club captain. He's held up in very high regard by the Rangers fan base. And listen, I get why he's taken it. He loves his club. But, this is a manager that he doesn't have a very successful managerial career up until this point. So at Clyde, he's got a 38.3% win percentage. Kelty Hearts is a bit better, done well at Kelty Hearts. He got them promotion, 65.7%. But then you go on to Alloa, which was his most recent position, which was, I think, ended in 2022. So he's not worked in management since 2022 as well. So he's been out of it for a while. So rustiness will be there. In Alloa, my friend told me this stat the other day, and I had to go and check it. Alloa have had 13 managers in 30 years, and Ferguson ranks as the 11th highest in win percentage.
That's crazy. And
you think of the giant that, I know he's played for the club, but taking on the role as a manager is a completely different animal.
Yeah, it is crazy. I think as you mentioned, the appointment is to kind of appease the fans. I think a lot of fans were kind of crying out for a Rangers man to be put in charge, but I'm looking at who they've actually brought in, Ferguson, McCann, Dodds and McGregor. Neil McCann, he's the one that's worked at the highest level in management. Yes, he's not been that successful, but he knows what it takes to manage in the Premier League. And I think putting Ferguson in charge, was just a bit of a, not a PR move as such, but I think because of the character he is, he's very loud, he's very opinionated. I think that was the only reason he was put in charge, and I think it is just a case of he'll go in, he'll be stern with them, he'll be tough, he won't care what he says to them. But I think if you look at the Rangers side, it's not the Rangers side. It's not a Rangers that they know. They knew people that would run through brick walls for that club. That's
Ferguson being one of them.
100%. But this isn't that group of players.
No.
And I think it's just all about how can they get the best out of what's there. And I was on social media this morning, and a lot of the Rangers fans were on now saying, okay, maybe Clement wasn't the problem. And I think that is a big talking factor, because we spoke, Clement is a great manager in Europe. He just didn't really know how to adapt to the league.
Well, this is what I was about to say to you. Rangers this week, we'll talk about it later, have a big tie against Fenerbahce. Would you not have kept him to see how he got on there? And then if they'd went out and they had no chance of silverware, then do the change up. It was a bit.
I agree.
It was a very interesting. I know that maybe fan demand, leaving the stadium, not turning up to games, maybe just put too much pressure, I guess, on Clement in the end, following that St Mirren result. But you were talking about Ferguson, the kind of character he is. He probably will try to be more of an old school manager rather than a current manager. And we saw it work at Kilmarnock. He saw that it wasn't working, so he hoofed off Nsiala before half time. It makes a statement to the player. I would argue that it probably will have dented his confidence greatly, getting taken off in the first half, but it obviously worked out for him. But my first thing that I said, I remember it was to my dad that night, it was like, if he thinks that that's going to work every single time, just take off a player because they're not playing well, it does not work that way. And we saw it really unfold this weekend against Motherwell.
Yeah, 100%. And first of all, kudos to Motherwell. I think they were great. I think
Michael Wimmer off to a really good start
100%.
too. After that first loss, didn't have a lot of time to work with the players, but he's now 2 wins in a row.
Yeah, I think it is a prime example of new manager bounce. But that's also a third consecutive home defeat for Rangers for the first time in 12 years, which is insane. But it's also Motherwell's second league win over Rangers in 61 attempts, and those two have came at the last 2 times they've played at Ibrox.
Yeah,
I think
similar points of the season as well, like in the last 2 seasons too.
Yeah, 100%. I think Luke Armstrong looks like a real coup for them, but
That real physical presence up there, isn't he? He can hold up the ball very well.
Yeah, I heard him get described as a Viking.
Oh, is that the look or is that the...
I think it may be a bit of both.
I think it's quite an
I'm
impressive
not gonna lie.
hair and beard combo, I have to say.
Yeah, no, definitely. But again, hats off to Motherwell. Like, it's a superb result, but I think it just really shows where Rangers are at, and that Barry Ferguson can't just give the players an absolute hounding at half time and expect them to come out.
It's not going to work every single time, and it was a perfect example of that. We always talk about new manager bounces, and it is a thing. It very much is a thing. Rangers in the second half against Kilmarnock were absolutely excellent. They were ruthless, but we didn't see the same thing at Motherwell, and you can't expect that to happen every single time. So yeah, really long 2 weeks for Rangers, I would say. But let's I guess move on to the other side of Glasgow. So Celtic, one of the big talking points in Munich was how rock solid Celtic's defence was. Since returning to league action, they look a bit shaky at the back. They've been leaking a few goals. They've obviously been scoring a few goals too. What's your thoughts on how Celtic have kind of responded in the last couple of games following Munich?
I think you're kind of somebody was spot on. They have been leaking a couple goals, but again, I think that just comes from Brendan Rodgers. He's quite stubborn in the way he likes to play. I think he's not very adaptable when it comes to league action anyway, because I don't think he expects teams to come out and press. And I find that a lot with both sides of the Old Firm. If a team comes and presses them, they don't really know what to do. So yeah, obviously Trusty came off with an injury in their last game. I've not been too impressed with him.
No. What I'll say is, he's a player that's over 6 feet, quite a strong-looking physical player. And in the last couple of games, we saw it at Dundee at the start of the year. Brendan Rodgers made a comment about it in the press conference afterwards, but he looks like he's very easy to get kind of bullied and pushed off the ball. And I think, that is an adapting to the Scottish game. It's a very physical game. What I will say, I was at the Celtic and Hibs game. I just want to do a quick shout out. It's been said enough in the media. What an absolute incredible and beautiful rendition of Sunshine on Leith at the end of the game. It was frankly excellent, and it was amazing to watch, and we got it again at the weekend there. We'll talk about that. But no, fantastic for Hibs. We'll talk about them later too. But Celtic have responded very well following that defeat against Hibs. I do think there was probably a hint of European jet lag, really. 10 goals in 2 games against Aberdeen. I was at the Aberdeen game. Celtic's last 2 games, despite scoring the 10 goals, they don't look like a team that, it wasn't a performance that looked like it was, that would have had 5 goals apiece, really. I know you really want to talk about the Celtic and St Mirren games, so do you want to just talk about that? From my opinion, watching it, the game could have been about 8-6 in terms of a scoreline if St Mirren had taken their chances better. Celtic also didn't take all their chances too. It was an interesting game, to say the least.
Yeah, I think it was a really good advert for Scottish football. I think
in some ways
for intro, yeah, in some ways more than others. But I think as much as we got beat 5-2, I don't think it wasn't a 5-2 game. I think we could have been up quite comfortably in the first half, if I'm being honest. I thought we were really good. We kept the ball really well. We pressed like our lives depended on it when we didn't have the ball. I thought Killian Phillips was outstanding, but someone who always flies under the radar, and I want to really give him a shout out, was Marcus Fraser. I don't know what happened to him in that game. He's always Mr. Consistent, but he turned into Prime Cafu. He was in the corner defending his own defensive half, and I was at Maida was maybe pressing him.
Mm-hmm.
He twirled and he turned and then he got away, and I was like
not many people in the league do that to Maida. So
no,
yeah,
I was a bit surprised, but he was outstanding.
Yeah, I thought it was a very unfair scoreline on St Mirren because I thought St Mirren were pretty excellent for the majority of the game.
I definitely think the subs changed the game. I think if you look at the squad depth there, we were on our last legs, coming into the final 10 minutes, Boydmans, Mark O'Hara, Killian Phillips, Middle Park, they ran their absolute socks off, and we're bringing on subs that are not, they're great, they are great in quality. Like Owen Oseni is a project. We bought him from Gateshead. He's only 19, 20 years old. He is very raw, but you turn around and Celtic are warming up, Yang, Jota, Luke McCowan, and you're like, the quality levels are there. I thought Yang was superb.
I want to touch a wee bit on Yang. I've been very critical of him off air. Last season he scored 1 goal. He's scored 5 goals this season. And since the turn of the year, he's scored 5 goals and provided 3 assists, and he was absolutely excellent when he came on against St Mirren. I do think you're seeing a player that's beginning to adapt better, and I frankly will hold my hands up and say I'm going to give him a wee bit more time. I look at a player like Nicholas Kuhn. A lot of people wrote him off last year, and he's had a fantastic season in the jersey. So it'll be interesting to see where Yang goes from here. Because things are turning around a wee bit for him.
I think Brendan Rodgers touched on the fact he's got a Scottish girlfriend now, so that might have something
Well, yeah,
to do with it.
He was like, she's making him dinner. She's making him dinners, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
A bit prehistoric, but yeah. No, listen. I think we'll touch now on probably the biggest controversy in that game, and we'll go on to VAR. The thing that gives us all headaches. I was in the pub with my pals a couple of days ago, and we just moaned about it for about an hour and a half. I'll let you go. Go for it.
Firstly, can I just say that the shots stat 18-14 for that game is ridiculous. For any game against the Old Firm, that is ridiculous.
Yep.
But yeah, I'll probably go off on one now, to be honest.
Right. I just sit back with my coffee.
Are you comfortable? Yeah, no. It's Matthew McDermott again. We were up at Tannadice earlier in the season, and we got beat 2-0, and the 2 goals had controversy around them. 2 VAR errors that Willie Collum came out and discussed. I would not be shocked to see another one add to the list. The game was 3-2 to Celtic. It was the last 5 minutes, and Alistair Johnson comes flying in to Roland Adowu. Does he get a slight touch?
For me, no.
For me, I don't think he does.
The ball was going in the opposite direction for me, and I think he took him out, and I I'm shocked that they didn't even look at it.
Well,
I don't believe they
So-
looked at it. I don't want to hear it.
so they did look at it. This is a
Right.
sports scene special.
Okay.
They did look at it and said it was a natural coming together.
Okay,
Which,
sure.
when Alistair Johnson is on the floor, studs up straight into Adowo's ankle, and then Adowo is then on the floor. Kasper Schmeichel collects the ball, launches it long, and then Celtic go and score. But there's not even a stoppage.
It was
Nothing.
It was also the
very
period,
bizarre.
the point in the game you said as well. Like that could have been a huge turning point for St Mirren,
So-
and it might not have been the result at the end that it was, because Celtic were pretty ruthless after that.
Oh, 100%.
Especially Maida's goal was I mean, I've said enough about Maida. He's what a player he's turned into for Celtic. His touch for that was it the last goal?
It was the fifth, yeah.
The fifth goal.
Yeah, it was the
I mean,
fifth.
his touch was just sublime, really. Yeah, it was. And listen, this isn't the only VAR decision in the last 2 weeks that you find yourself going. And again, it just goes back to, and it can't be said enough, it's the inconsistency of this. And so you've got the Alistair Johnson balls. For me, I was at the game. I believe the ball was out of play. I'm not saying it wasn't out of play, but the argument that it wasn't clear and obvious is valid, is 100% valid. Also, the fact that SFA now keep coming out and saying, well, that should have been that should have been that. Well, there's obviously genuine inconsistencies and problems with VAR then.
Yeah, apologies don't give you points at the end of the day, and I think obviously when this one comes out, I'll be quite shocked if they turn around and say it wasn't an error.
Yeah.
That'll be 7 errors against St Mirren this season.
Yeah.
Dundee United obviously had Sam Dalby's goal ruled out, which was ridiculous.
Lauren.
But that is also the only decision that's went against them this season. And
Yeah.
you see that the amount of coverage that's getting.
Compared to that of St
again,
Mirren, who have had so many against them.
It's not even just us, like it is a lot of teams,
Yeah.
but I'm looking at it and I don't think the technology is wrong. I think the people who run it, I think when you've seen, before VR was brought in, we obviously spoke about referees a lot, how they were getting decisions wrong. Yes, you can forgive human error, but you've got the same people running this technology, and they've clearly not been trained on it properly, because Willie Collum should not have to come out every single week without fail and say, sorry. Sorries don't give you anything.
For me, the Dundee United one, and this was where the argument began.
Yep.
At the weekend, or not the argument, because everyone in my pals was all in
Everyone's
agreement.
talking about it, yeah.
They were so hell bent on trying to find out if it was offside, then realised it wasn't offside, and then just gave a handball anyway. All those minutes that they spent checking for an offside, if there was a handball, that should have been that.
Yep.
It's the total level of inconsistency. That was a huge game for Dundee United against Hibs, and could prove very vital in this top 4 race.
Yeah.
It's the sheer inconsistencies of it now, and I think people are now just at the point. What I said to my friends, and listen, maybe you will disagree. For me, I still feel like the guy on the pitch should be the one that makes the majority of the calls. And my suggestion, listen, I'm just some wee guy for East Kilbride, but I believe that the referee should have the call on whether or not VAR should intervene. Instead of VAR telling the referee, oh, we're going to check this, he should be the one to go, I'm not so sure about this, can you check this? Rather than it being the opposite way about.
See, I get that, but then I'm also looking at some of the decisions that they've made, and they've stuck to their original decision when it's clearly wrong. So I probably disagree with you on that one, but what I think potentially should happen is get rid of VR get rid of VR full stop. No, I'm joking.
Get it out.
Yeah, get it out. I think goal line technology and offsides. That's it. I would say offsides and goal line technology, and then I think everything else, you can forgive human error.
So let's go, like we said, obviously Celtic now 16 points clear with Rangers losing to Motherwell and Celtic winning at St Mirren. You would now think at this point that the league is very much and truly over.
Yeah, Celtic only need 3 wins, I think.
3 wins. They could win.
They could win it without kicking a ball.
Yeah, they could. Well, they've obviously, Rangers now have a monumental 2 weeks ahead of them. They have 2 ties against Fenerbahce, and then they have to go to Celtic Park. Yes, fans are allowed back in. Let's just do a quick clap for them finally letting fans back into the stadium. The atmosphere will be better. I'm also glad that it's more fans being allowed back in than the last time there was fans allowed in. There was only 800 fans allowed in last time. I think it's about 2,500 or around that.
Right, yeah.
Which is great. They're obviously going to put up nets to protect players. and then other fans. I'm just happy that there'll be an atmosphere again, even if it is still a very small amount of Rangers fans.
Yeah, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, better than nothing. It's see when you're you're the opposing team away from home and you score and you can hear a pin drop. It's just weird. It feels like COVID, and it was that was horrible for all of us when we were watching it. So let's move on to the race for the top 4. It has truly heated up, hasn't it, Lauren? I mean, Hibs, what can we say at this point? 15 games unbeaten, Lauren.
Who would have thought at the start of the season? I think David Gray looked as if he was going to be the 10th manager taken by Stephen Robinson at one point. But no, I think, they've been outstanding, I think. They've really settled into this style of play. David Gray's gotten them playing extremely good football. He's found a really good balance. I think Josh Campbell, for me in particular, he's been exceptional after having a pretty torrid time, I think, before Christmas. Rocky Bashiri, we spoke about him the last time we were on. He's just been an absolute rock.
He made his first mistake in the Edinburgh Derby at the weekend. That was his first mistake in how many games? I mean, the notion amongst Edinburgh fans are that Rocky Bashiri will or Hibs fans, sorry, Rocky Bashiri will either have an outstanding game or a howler. But he's been pretty consistent as of late, and he made one mistake in the Edinburgh Derby. Luckily, it didn't lead to them, losing the game or anything. But no, listen. Do you know what? I think at this point, Hibs have now moved up to 3rd place. When we talk about where they were at the start of the season, it's just it's night and day.
They went from rock bottom to 3rd.
I mean, they are the form team in the league, and it was funny after Hibs beat Celtic at Easter Road a couple of weeks ago, in the press conference afterwards, I was a wee bit scared for Hibs in the Scottish Cup tie this weekend, because Callum McGregor said, well, we get to play them again in a couple of weeks at home. And if I was Hibs, I'd be scared, because the last time Aberdeen got a bit of a hiding in the Scottish League Cup semi-final following a good result at Celtic Park. So I was a wee bit feared for Hibs, but the unbeaten run, the collectiveness, the togetherness, I don't think this is going to be as plain sailing as that Aberdeen tie was. I do think that this is going to be a really close encounter, and it could end Celtic's attempt at a treble. So it was their first time they've won back-to-back against Hearts in the league since 2009. So that's a big length of time. So fantastic for Hibs. Let's hope they keep up that fine run of form. Dundee United, though, a team that really are just struggling a bit now. We said last time we were in here that now that they had played both sides of the old firm, they could focus on playing the teams around them to try and ensure that that top 4 position. But it's since the new year, they've won 3, drew 1 and lost 6. Dalby does seem to be back in form in terms of scoring, but it's just not kind of going their way now, is it?
Yeah, I think they are. They're hitting a little bit of a sticky patch at the minute. Obviously, they're still sitting pretty comfortably within the top 6, and they are only 2 points behind Hibs, so it isn't over. But I do think they need to start picking up more results in the coming weeks before the split, just to maybe cement that European place. Sam Dalby coming back into form is obviously a big boost for them. I think they will feel a bit aggrieved, obviously, the last couple of weeks, but I don't, conceding a 91st minute equaliser against Aberdeen, that would have been a tough one to take as well.
Yeah, and then talking about Aberdeen, the form they were in for a long period of time, I don't think Aberdeen would have got back into the game in a couple of games ago. Fantastic for them to to at least walk away with a point at the end, and I think that will be very important for them going forward. Just the ability to get themselves back into the game, I think form cannot be stated enough. So
I think Kevin Nisbet coming into the side and really hitting a
that's what he was brought in for.
Yeah.
That's what he was brought in for.
It's been good to see him back, his best self as well.
So let's talk about. We won't focus too much on what else is going on. I mean, Kilmarnock, I would argue they're not really taking their chances. They're only 3 points above the bottom 2 now, so they've kind of entered that conversation of fighting for survival, especially with an up in form from St Johnstone. I want to talk about Dundee. I was very positive about them in the first episode. Since they drew with Celtic at the beginning of the year, they've scored 3 goals and conceded 19 in 5 games before their weekend tie with St Johnstone. They drew with St Johnstone, which albeit was not too bad a result for them. But when you compare Dundee's results against St Johnstone's results, in that same period that I spoke about, in their last 5 league games before that tie at the weekend, they've taken 9 points from 15, and after yesterday's draw, they've clawed back to being only 3 points behind when they were 12 behind at one point.
Yeah, I think they've really fallen. They've fallen big time. I don't know what's happened, because it's not like they've really been hampered with injuries. If anything, they've had a return of injuries. Joe Shaughnessy had a long layoff with a knee injury. He's now back. Club captain. I think the resurgence of St Johnstone has maybe really knocked them for 6 in their fall. I think they maybe thought they were safe because of how far away St Johnstone were. But now there's only 3 points between the two sides, and there is only one team that looks like they're coming out of it.
Yeah, it's been a difficult period for Tony Docherty and his side. And then just lastly, I guess on the top flight before we move on to other topics, Ross County seem to be a team that they're churning out enough results and enough points to kind of get them out of that danger zone that they were in for a while. And I think it cannot be stated. I think it's been understated, the job that Don Cowie's actually doing there. Yeah,
it's been remarkable, really. I think a lot of people had St Johnstone relegated and Ross County in the playoff kind of before the turn of the year, as kind of set in stone, and then everyone else is just kind of floating about. I think with Ross County, they're giving me a little bit of Hamilton Accies about them, like Cat with 9 lives, really. Like, you think they're down and out, and then they just seem to catapult. But, I mean, we were talking about this off air, and it's so tight, they could end up in the top 6.
That's the thing, though. They could also still end up down
relegated.
It's so tight, and we spoke about it plenty of times. So will we walk on to our Scottish football preview? So we'll do our votes. Do you want to take it away, Lauren?
Yeah, so for best goal of the week, I was between two. Dyson Maida's goal against St Mirren was an exceptional goal, but I think just for the importance and the technique on the goal, I had to go with Jack Iredale for Hibs. I thought it was an outstanding strike to put his side 2-1 up.
To win the derby too. Do you know what I mean? There's something behind that.
At Easter Road, I don't think he would have ever dreamed of scoring a goal like that, of that importance at home. So I had to go with Jack Iredale.
I was of the same opinion. I do think that that was probably the best goal, but I would also say I think both the Hibs goals were excellent. I think Martin Boyle took his amazing. I mean, turned into Usain Bolt chasing after the ball from the halfway line. But yeah, no, I would say I think Jack Iredale was probably the best goal.
Perfect. Howler of the weekend. I'm not biased at all, but it's Matthew McDermott for not giving us a penalty against Celtic. So yeah. Sorry, not sorry.
Fair
Matthew.
enough. I think Jack Butland's throw out leading to one. Listen, credit to Motherwell, but it was an absolute howler. I don't know what really has happened to Jack Butland. He was probably one of the best players in the league last season, and I just don't know what's going on. I really don't know what's going on with him. I mean, you would say he's probably one of the few players that has been consistent at the club in the last 2 years, and I mean, it was just such a poor throw. It's just, you wouldn't have seen him do that last year. So for me, that's my howler of the weekend. Do you want to talk about what's your result of the weekend? My result of the weekend? Well, I've got a kind of a rogue one. I think the main one was obviously Motherwell beating Rangers. I think that was a fantastic result for Michael Wimmer and Motherwell. Obviously the historic nature of that as well. But looking to a league that we've not really touched on, Hibs women beat Celtic women 1-0 in that title race. There's that fantastic 4-way title race going on now. Yeah, so so coming into this weekend, the top 4 teams were all on the same points. Mm-hmm. Rangers and Hearts drew 2 each. Hearts were 2-0 up in that game. Rangers came back. Laura Berry, outstanding young talent, comes off the bench as a striker, but as a wing back, scores and gets an assist. We can talk about her in another episode. She's a superb talent for Scotland. But I've been really surprised with Hibs. They had real success before Celtic and Rangers got investment. They obviously then kind of tailed away for a little bit, but then they got some real investment. They brought back Grant Scott, and they've been outstanding this season. And to get that 1-0 win over Celtic,
is superb. So they're now tied with Glasgow City at the top of the league. Glasgow City won 4-0 against Motherwell yesterday. But it is really tight, so
yeah, it's good.
interesting.
It's good to see. Like obviously, you said until Celtic and Rangers got that kind of investment, but the last couple of years, it's been Glasgow City, Celtic, or Rangers that have won that league. So it's good to see another team in there challenging for that. So I would echo that as a result of the weekend. I think I will go with that. I do want to give a couple of shout outs. I was toying with saying the Motherwell result, but see, to be honest with you, given Rangers' form at home recently, I'm not saying it wasn't a surprise, but it wasn't as big a surprise as it would have been in the past. I also want to say Hibs result against Hearts. Again, they are on a 15-game unbeaten run, but that was a massive win for them and to continue this fine form.
Yep.
So let's talk about the Scottish Cup. Scottish Cup this weekend or this week. Thought will we do quick fire? We'll just say. So I'll go Hearts Dundee.
Hearts, based on Dundee's form.
I'll go Hearts. Aberdeen Queen's Park.
I'd really like to say Queen's Park, but I think at Pittodrie, I can't really.
It's the kick-off time as well. It's not ideal for Queen's Park.
Yeah, it's not ideal for Queen's Park. I'm going to go Aberdeen, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Queen's Park pull off an upset. Especially with the form they're on at the minute, actually.
This is every week I'm going to make a bold prediction. I think Queen's Park will beat Aberdeen. I think they'll go through. Celtic and Hibs.
It'll be close. It'll definitely be close. Hibs will be flying high at the minute. But I think just at Parkhead, I think Celtic will edge it.
I think Celtic will be looking for a bit of revenge. I did say I kind of changed my opinion on how I think the game will go. At first I thought it could potentially be a bit of a routing, but I think it'll be close. Livingston St Johnstone. I was torn with this one.
So a few weeks ago I said Livingston based on the way they were playing, and with the way St Johnstone were playing. But I think St Johnstone have kind of had a little bit of resurgence under Valakari, so I'm going to go St Johnstone. I'm
going to go St Johnstone as well for the exact same reason. And then on to another club that's in action this week, obviously from Scotland, Rangers and Fenerbahce. Again, similar to what you said with St Johnstone and Livingston, if Philippe Clement was still in the door, given European pedigree, I would have said that it would have been close in this tie. But I think, and I don't want to be too critical, but the inexperience of managing at a European level, I think, especially going up against Jose Mourinho, I'll be very surprised to see Rangers go through this tie. However, I've been proven wrong before by Rangers. So, what do you think? Just Fenerbahce or Rangers? What's your thoughts?
I can't see past Fenerbahce at the minute, to be honest. I think there's not really much positivity about Rangers just now. So yeah, I'll go Fenerbahce. And
then our game of the weekend, I think we're both unanimous on this one from the point of view of what it would mean for the race for the title. Morton, Ayr. Yeah,
100%. I think if Ayr can beat Morton at Capello, I think that sends out a real statement.
It'll just make it so tight up there, even tighter than it has been, and you're just like, what?
Yeah, you don't know how it can get tighter, but somehow it just keeps getting tighter.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Ayr can get that result, then that would be outstanding for them.
Absolutely. So welcome to Jack Harris, the Spanish sports correspondent for ENRG News here at Edinburgh Napier, but also the host of the Edinburgh Football Show. Welcome, Jack.
Thanks for having me on, Aidan. Pleasure speaking to you.
How are you, Jack? You doing well?
Aye, not too bad. Good weekend in my other pursuit as a Hibs fan, so I'm doing all right.
Yes, doing very well right now. 15 games unbeaten, not too bad.
Who would have thought that at the start of the season, mate?
Oh, wow, that was the Paul Rudd meme there. Who would have thought it? Not me. Not me. So we'll just get right into it. You're a Spanish sports correspondent. You're passionate about Spanish football. We really want to talk about Real Madrid. This kind of notion over the last couple of years, at least, I don't think it's been forever this has been a thing, but as of recent, at least maybe the last 3 or 4 years, they seem to get better as the season goes on, no matter what the squad is. Is that a kind of Carlo Ancelotti factor, or is that just something that's built up over the years? Like, where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think everyone talks about them as the team that comes alive in January. And when you get those Champions League knockout games, that then breeds a sense of confidence over these sort of two-leg fixtures where they're consistently doing well. They bring that into the league. They start taking out those smaller teams I think they struggle with at the start of the season. But I was looking at the stats thinking about this morning, and actually they don't ever start the season too badly. I think this is perhaps the exception that proves the rule of like the past 5 years or so, where they've obviously just signed Kylian Mbappe on a free, and he's struggling to adapt to the side. His replacement is, what's Hendrik, an 18-year-old at the moment? Was he 17 at the time? I can't remember. But both of them have just joined Real Madrid. It's a club with a huge history. And there's a real pressure that comes to score goals, to perform consistently, to put the team on your back. And when you think, Mbappe had a pretty torrid time when he left PSG. And he comes into this Real Madrid team that's still 2 years on trying to replace Karim Benzema. A position that Mbappe, he is a Frenchman, but he's not a striker, he's a left winger. Obviously, you have the best left winger in the world in Real Madrid at the time, Vinicius Jr., who's on an incredible run of form coming off the back of last season. So I think the fact that they're trying to play Mbappe in that centre-forward role, and they're looking and they're thinking, why are we not scoring these clinical goals against these small teams at the start of the season? I think that's the problem that you're looking at. I think now they've sort of rectified that. Mbappe's on a good bit of form. They've rectified a tough start in the Champions League, which is, I think, the first time they've had that in a very long time. I don't know if I put that down to the same thing or just the fact they've got a real defensive crisis with injuries at the moment.
Do you think a lot of it has to do, especially this season, with the amount of egos on the team? Like, you've got a lot of big personalities. You've got the introduction of Mbappe, you've got the development of Bellingham as his confidence continues to grow in football. And then you've just got, like, when you look at that forward line, like from midfield to the forward, it's potentially the best in world football. Do you think it is a case of Ancelotti being able to kind of find a way to get them to work together and put kind of egos aside, really?
I was thinking about this earlier in the season. I don't know if you've seen the Simpsons episode where you bet you didn't see this coming on, where Mr. Burns gets really ill and he's got one of every virus in the world and they all sort of perfectly balance. And the doctor's got these like wee cuddly germ toys and he's trying to shove them all through the door at the same time. And he's saying like, this is why you're not getting ill with any of these. Real Madrid was a little bit like that. So last season you had Bellingham kind of operating in the centre-forward role, almost a combination of that and the role Scott McTominay plays for Scotland, that kind of box crashing, comes up, scores a late goal, he's the hero. I think he probably would have wanted to continue doing that this season. Obviously, Ancelotti, bringing in Mbappe, has different plans. Vinicius is the same. Vinicius, he's a great provider of the ball, but like you say, he does have an ego. And I think we saw that in the Ballon d'Or ceremony. I think his ego was very bruised. And I think because he is, or at least he was after the departure of Karim Benzema, the kind of the star player of Real Madrid, I think he saw that role continuing. So I think Ancelotti's role was trying to help them work together. And I think that's something they struggled with at the start of the season because those two, Vinicius and Bellingham, probably weren't anticipating having the best player in the world on their team.
Well, with regards to, I guess, that kind of notion that we spoke about as they get better as the season goes on, one of the things that really has built up, I mean, when I think of Real Madrid, I think of the Champions League. And especially within the last couple of years, I mean, they seem to just be almost experts at winning that tournament now, and I still have them on as the favourites, even when they were outside the qualification. I still thought they'll somehow win this. That is the feeling that's built up, and there is this kind of idea, amongst football fans, is that they almost prioritise Europe over the league. And I was kind of wanting to pick your brain about why you think that might be.
I think there's a real sense of expectation that you are a 15-time Champions League winner. There's an expectation that when the final comes around, you're going to be there and you're going to win it. I mean, I think Real Madrid and Carlo Ancelotti in particular don't lose finals. And so there have been a few times when they've got knocked out in the early rounds against really tough opposition, like Man City, probably the toughest team they've come up against in the Champions League. But I don't think there's ever been that same expectation that they win La Liga or they win the Copa del Rey. I think they're a club sort of built to win the Champions League. And it's interesting because, I mean, they've won so many domestic titles, but at least they're sort of changing that in the past couple of seasons where it looks like they pay more attention to winning the league, and it looks like they pay more attention to those kind of midweek fixtures that maybe they don't want to play, and they still go on and win the Champions League. So I mean,
but I guess for me, I look at, Barcelona are having a better season than they've had in recent seasons, but is it the drop off of Barca as a club that has led to maybe this development that they are now kind of taking a wee bit more priority over the league? Because I feel like there was times where Barcelona won the league, but Real Madrid were the best team in the world and they won the Champions League.
I think it definitely opened the door for Real Madrid to be the best club in Spain. And I think when Messi was still around, and it's easy to point everything to Messi leaving, but when he was still around and there was that Barcelona team, they were the best team in Spain and Real Madrid were the best team in Europe, and that was just the way things were. So I think there is a drop-off. Barcelona haven't dropped off that far. I mean, they've always been sort of competing towards the top. Now they seem to have got it sorted, and I've no doubt they'll sort of go to the last match day and probably still be challenging for the league, if not the Champions League as well. But yeah, I think I agree with you that that's probably why Real Madrid's had the door open to them for being able to compete domestically as well as in Europe.
So I was just thinking, the way Real Madrid have dominated European football for the last however long, they've always seemed to recruit for European competition, whereas if you look at the Barcelona sides of the past, you had your Iniestas, your Xavis, your Messis, your Busquets, your Spanish footballers, like the tiki-taka model that obviously Pep Guardiola brought in, and I feel like Real Madrid have done the opposite. They've recruited for the European competition. I don't know what you think about that.
So there's this saying, and I don't know how much I agree with it necessarily, but it says that Real Madrid, when they go into the transfer market in the summer, they sign a Galactico and they sign what they call a cantera, which is like a homegrown sort of academy player. And this season, I'm thinking about it, obviously you've brought in Kylian Mbappe, but you've also got the likes of Raúl Asensio, who is this kind of centre-back in the Sergio Ramos model, looks like one of those regens on FIFA. And he's fantastic. I mean, he's a brilliant centre-back, but Kylian Mbappe was not brought in to win La Liga, I don't think. Kylian Mbappe has one goal, and that's to win the Champions League. And in the same way that when Pep Guardiola, obviously formerly Barca, when he brought Erling Haaland into Man City, he didn't bring Erling Haaland into Man City to win the Premier League. I think Real and City are quite similar in that regard.
I was just about to pick up there. You obviously said that Mbappe's goal is to win the Champions League, but I would also say he's got his eyes on the Ballon d'Or. Maybe not looked at the way it used to be, but he wants to win that. But there's several players on that Real Madrid team that want to win that, and it kind of goes back to that whole notion of a lot of personalities and egos on that team. But you said, he came to Real Madrid to win the Champions League, and I've obviously said that I think to win the Ballon d'Or too. Is there a kind of almost a mirror image of when Neymar went to Barca all those years ago in the effort to win the Ballon d'Or and never did?
I think so. I think that's probably the same as Vinicius Jr. He's quite openly stated that he's always wanted to be a player that's winning the Ballon d'Or. I think when Neymar went to Barcelona, it was maybe a bit different in that Neymar was already quite an established talent and was already looking at it by the time he arrived at Barcelona. Vinicius Jr. was very much a project. And it's a project that really looked like it had gone badly at the start. And, I think we all have to sort of eat humble pie and say it's gone pretty well. He's a fantastic player. Mbappe, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised if the Ballon d'Or is like sort of top 2 on his Christmas wish list. And that's going to be a big part of why he's gone to Real Madrid. But I think that's also because he knows that at PSG, and, sorry to any PSG fans of your podcast, that PSG are not going to win the Champions League. I don't think they didn't look like they were going to win it when they had the 3 best players in the world. They especially don't look like they're going to win it right now. And they're doing well. They've got a good coach. They've got, a relatively good tactical philosophy. They're walking League on, but you kind of expect that to happen. They're doing okay in Europe. But I don't think they can compete with the likes of, the recently departed Man City, but Liverpool, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich to an extent, although they've not looked at their normal selves. Sorry to the Celtic fan. It's tricky, yeah, and I think when it comes down to the end of the season, we will probably be looking at a Real Madrid podium, I think, if they can win the Champions League. But it's the same for Barcelona. I think it all comes down to, it's not going to matter about who wins the Copa del Rey, who wins La Liga. It's going to come down to which of those 2 teams can win the Champions League, and I would be very surprised if it wasn't one of them.
I guess I just want to finish off by addressing, obviously, their owner, Florentino Perez, and then also what happened a few years ago with this notion of the Super League. They seem to be the only team and owner that hasn't given up on the prospect of that, and I think it kind of goes hand in hand with that kind of prioritisation of Europe. Is that potentially what the future looks like for Real Madrid? You know, with their relationship with the La Liga, it's pretty damaged at this point. Can you see that in their future, that they would depart the league?
Ooh, big question. I think they'd need something good to depart the league for. And I think Florentino still goes to bed every night dreaming of the European Super League. It's not something, I mean, every club in the world would come out and tell him it was a bad idea. He wants it, and the thing about Florentino Perez is what Florentino Perez wants, Florentino Perez eventually gets. And he's going to keep working towards it. I think the relationship between Real Madrid and the rest of La Liga was pretty bad already. I don't think they've got many friends in the same way that, you know, there are some clubs in La Liga, but in any European league that have their sort of friendly clubs, the nice atmospheres. I don't think Real Madrid ever go away to a game and have a nice atmosphere. I think every team has always wanted to beat them, probably because they're so successful. But I think there's also other complications like their relationship with referees. There's this whole thing about Real Madrid getting soft penalties. Now they're not getting soft penalties, and everyone's now going, well, haha, look at you crying now. That's another reason we're going to hate you. Talking about egos, I don't think players like Bellingham and Vinicius Jr. necessarily, I mean, it's not their job to help Real Madrid be a sort of friendly club in the league. That's not what they're there for. But I think that then gives fans a reason to shout at them. That is not at all condoning anything that, you know, some of the horrible things they've shouted at Vinicius Jr. But I think that trying to aggravate fan bases and sort of being that person that kind of takes Real Madrid on your back and says, we are Real Madrid, you're going down to the second division, there's always going to be a hostile atmosphere when they show up. It's not that I don't think trying to start a European Super League hasn't helped that at all, because most of the clubs they're going to in Spanish fixtures, I mean, everyone other than Atletico Madrid and Barcelona, I think, would just be gone into insignificance if Florentino Perez gets his way. I mean, that's talking about your Sevillas, your Valencias, your Athletic Club Bilbao's, like these really historic clubs who've had great success domestically and in Europe are just nothing compared to his sort of toy box of this is what I want football to look like.
It does seem like a bit of a throw the toys out the pram if he doesn't get his own way kind of owner. Like when Bellingham got his ban a couple of weeks ago, there was already talk of we're leaving La Liga because they think there's some sort of conspiracy. Yeah, like, it's crazy.
It's the same as the Ballon d'Or when Vinny doesn't get it and they all go, right, well, we're not going. I mean, they win however many other awards they win, but we won't show up because Vinny's not won it.
It is given very much toddler vibes.
Well, listen, Jack, thanks so much for coming on. It was a great insight into, I guess, Real Madrid and the La Liga. You know, this is obviously a Scottish football show, but it's always interesting hearing about what else is going on. Is there anything else you want to just kind of plug while you're here? Anything you want to say? You've got the Edinburgh Football Show that's starting up soon.
Do listen in if you can. Check out my brilliant La Liga column on ENRG Sport and have a lovely week.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Thanks, Aidan. Thanks, Lauren.
Well, that is all from us on this edition of the Tartan Touchline. Please do write in with feedback, suggestions and anything you would like us to cover. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok and Twitter, and you can even write to us at thetartantouchline@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Lauren McCulloch.
I've been Aidan Gilbride.
Catch you next week.